The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly podcast coming to you on October 7th, 2020. Actually doing this mobile right now in my car because I don't have time to record at home, so I'm doing this while I can. How you guys doing anyway? The podcast you can find on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts as well, and of course now Amazon Music. We're now on Amazon Music platform officially. Check out the Earnestly podcast, of course. How you guys doing anyway? This is gonna be a fairly quick one, I guess. Maybe about 20 minutes. We'll see. Because tomorrow, by the way, I'm recording. Will be for Friday anyway, but I'm preparing a mega podcast for Friday. With tons of guests, 3 guests on the show, including some stuff for myself. But let's talk about a couple things real quick when I got my chest because I won't be able to get it in tomorrow. NBA Finals. Looks like the Lakers are going to win this in 5 games, probably. I don't see them losing Game 5. They have a 3-1 commanding lead. Miami played well last night. I thought Miami had a chance to really they blew some chances to actually get back in the series and win Game 4 as well, tying the series after a disastrous start to the series. But I'm really proud of them. I've been saying that, this is probably my favorite of the 31 teams I've cheered for, my entire life. This is probably my favorite one, W top 3. And I'm really proud of what they've done. I'm really proud of how they played. I'm really proud of how they've just, never say die, the attitude, the grit, the balance of the team. I love that. But again, the Lakers, it is what it is. The Lakers have the 2 best players of basketball right now on the same team, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. And it's hard to overcome, especially hard to overcome when you don't have one of your best players playing either. Goran Dragic, who I really believe would have been a big help last night, considering that he also only 6 points. There were a lot of possessions in that game. Honestly, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I mentioned about how there are many dead possessions by Kendrick Nunn, and Kendrick Nunn's had a really, really good year, really good rookie year. So I'm not going to sit here and blame him for the loss, but there were some moments in that game where he, there's a lot of empty possessions. And, I know for a fact that Goran Dragic, it plays, that's not going to happen. The ball moves better with Goran in the lineup. Jimmy Butler took most of the point guard role last night. He also had to guard LeBron especially down in crunch time. Did a good job with that as well. And also be the loading, carrying the load as an offensive player. He did the max player things. Certainly not the same Game 3 performance, not a replica of Game 3, but I thought he had a good game regardless. I just thought he maybe had any legs left. That big 3 he missed in the game where the Heat were down 2, that was obviously a big deal. But again, I'm not going to sit there and give blame. It is what it is. Next man up. Again, people are injured. We get that. Bam Adebayo did play the game. Played pretty well considering the injury, the neck injury. But again, you have Anthony Davis, LeBron James on the same team. I mean, you're asking for a lot there. And I thought really players, they, even when LeBron and Anthony Davis didn't play well in the first half, KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope stepped his game up, makes a big play. Scored that big layup late in the game over Duncan Robinson. So again, 3-1 series now for the Lakers, and Game 5 is on Friday. I don't expect the Heat to win this game, although I do think they'll show up and try and extend the series to a 6 game. But if you ask me, I had Lakers on 6 initially. Then when the injuries happened, I said it's probably a sweep, maybe close to 5 games. But I don't expect anything different. I think Lakers will win Game 5 and close out the season, close out the year, and LeBron gets 4th ring. And it is what it is. It is what it is. At least the Heat were competitive these last 2 games. Because if you saw the way games 1 and 2, the way those games were played and the way this came out, you would have thought a sweep was inevitable, and this would be the most lopsided series in finals history. But the Heat at least made it competitive. That's all you can ask for. So Game 5 again is on Sunday night. What else here I want to talk about? So I've been at work the last couple of days, and a couple of friends of mine have been talking about NFL stuff, and we were discussing Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson's having a fantastic season right now. Right now, he is my MVP. Okay, his stats this year are through the roof. Now, this is only 4 games, obviously, but again, they are allowing Russell Wilson to cook this year. Finally, Russell Wilson gets a chance to really be who he really is, and he is phenomenal. And we were talking about Russell Wilson we were discussing, my buddy of mine, shout out my friend James, by the way, James Thompson. We were discussing Russell Wilson's, Hall of Fame odds and whether or not he's a top 10 quarterback. And obviously, when people ask me that, when he asked me that, obviously my immediate reaction was no, not yet. Give him some time. There's really a lot of great quarterbacks, through the years that have, at least stamped their place in that discussion. Obviously the Brady's, Montana's, all that. But we got to talk a little bit about it, and it doesn't sound so far fetched. Now I'm still gonna lean no right now, but I think the conversation is definitely warranted. Especially if he continues to play the way he has. This year alone, here's his numbers this year alone. I'm gonna pull up real quick. So I'm putting it on the phone. His numbers alone this year. He has almost 1,300 passing yards. 16 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. His quarterback rating right now is 136.7. Okay, his completion percentage is 75% right now. It's insane. His career quarterback rating is 102.4, and QB rating is a really important stat. It's pretty much the stat that pretty much, it encapsulates everything about who you are as a quarterback. He has 243 touchdowns, only 70 interceptions. Then I saw this stat also too on Russell Wilson that really stunned me. This is a call to the Hall of Fame, based on the Hall of Fame monitor score. So Russell Wilson entered this season with a Hall of Fame monitor score of 66.75. That places him 30th all time and puts him in company with the best quarterbacks in league history. Now, anytime you're discussing, even in the top 20 discussion all time quarterbacks, you definitely should be looked at as a Hall of Famer. And granted, this is also Russell Wilson in the peak of his career. He still has a couple more years of peak years before he can pad these numbers up in a big way in the next couple of years. But I don't think it's really wacky to consider him as a top 10 all-time quarterback. Like I said, it may sound weird to some who may still be apprehensive about Russell Wilson and how good he is. But I don't think it's that wacky. But again, my immediate reaction would be no, just because of, and I'm talking about top 10, of course. But my immediate reaction would be no, only because I still think you have to really, I think he needs maybe a couple more years of this high play. And then we can have a discussion. Because for the first couple of years, he was still really good, but he was definitely chained down. And I do think, honestly, Pete Carroll was definitely, may have actually hurt him, may have cost him another championship. I'm not talking about the game against the New England Patriots. Forget that one. I'm talking about this in general. Russell Wilson being allowed to do this and being allowed to open up the offense and really throw the ball down the field. He has the best deep ball in the entire league. So again, I don't think it's wacky to really consider him a top 10 all time, but I still want to give respect to the ones that we do consider top 10 before we start really having that discussion. So, but yeah, he is right now my MVP of the year right now. Again, we still got another 12 games to go. Hopefully COVID does not become an issue, which it has been an issue now, obviously, with some outbreaks in Tennessee and whatnot. And the Pats got a couple guys who got COVID, Cam Newton, of course, and Stephen Gilmore, we just found out today, has COVID-19 as well. So, and even the president of the United States got it. So, I mean, it is what it is. Bill O'Brien fired by the Texans early in the week. Not surprising, should have been done last year. The fact that he kept his job, and not only kept his job last year, was able to even garner more power, become a general manager. On top of that, all of that was stunning. But 0-4 start for the Texans, and then we were reading about him and J.J. Watt got into it before he got fired. Yeah, I think once you start pissing off your star players, I think maybe that's when you know the end road is here. So I'm still a little stunned because they're 0-4, but again they opened the year against Kansas City, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. Arguably the three best teams in the AFC, arguably. Don't get mad at me, Bills fans. I'm not saying you're not. That's just the way it is. At least that's what the talking points are. But yeah, I do think if I'm the Texans, to me right now, and if you consider the Jets will be firing probably Adam Gase at some point, if not this year, so the end of the year, and other guys, Dan Quinn. I do think that the Texans' job is the most coveted job, will be the most coveted job of this offseason. So if I'm Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City and I'm looking for a team that I want to coach, Texas is the team I'm looking at because of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is a top 10 quarterback in the league. And of course, I want to coach that guy. Great leader too. On top of that, so yeah, that will be the most coveted job in the league. In the league once it gets once we see all the teams that part ways with their coaches. I think Houston will be the number one coveted job in the league because of Deshaun Watson. Okay, let's get to some WWE talk real quick. This Friday is the first night of the WWE draft. We'll probably, obviously, we're going to react to it next week on the show once we get past, you have 2 nights. SmackDown this Friday, Raw on Monday, and when we're going to, we'll obviously react at some point. We'll probably have a guest on, maybe Danger-RUSS, maybe James Neese. We'll see what happens. Big Jim. And, I was just thinking about the brands. And now, last year was the first time I actually got the chance to watch the draft for the first time. Like, the draft was instituted by WWE a long time ago, 2002, but I already stopped watching wrestling at that point. So I didn't know how it went, what were the rules, how it operated. And I was thinking to myself, what if NXT was a part of this thing? NXT in the last year has jumped leaps and bounds of importance to the WWE construct. Now, I will still say that Raw and SmackDown are more important, bigger shows. Obviously, the numbers reflect that. But the NXT is garnering close to a million. Well, not close to. Let's be real. They still get about between 600, 800,000 people, 900,000 people viewers on Wednesday nights, competing with AEW. And now, granted, AEW obviously has won most of those battles on Wednesday nights, but NXT has held its own. And NXT's in-ring is phenomenal. So it got me thinking, what if WWE decided to make it a draft for 3 different brands and spread out the roster, for example? And I was thinking about somebody like Kevin Owens, who can benefit, who's being lost on the Raw roster right now, can benefit being in NXT. I think if you put Kevin Owens on the yellow brand, I think he can really, and granted, he was there before, but that's, of course, at the time when NXT was looked at as solely a developmental brand. I think we're past that point with NXT. I think NXT, while you can still use them as a developmental brand, they've called up guys last year, Keith Lee's and Matt Riddle's and Shayna Baszler, all those guys. I do think some of those wrestlers who are there right now currently are, I would say a good portion of them are ready for the big show. And I think at this point you can just use that brand as a, if not on the level, certainly next to it. I've been saying for last year, I think that they should be looked at as almost an equal to Raw and SmackDown. And I think you put some of the guys that aren't really garnering enough attention on Raw and SmackDown, you can put them on NXT. Like Kevin Owens is for a perfect example. He could be a top guy on NXT. Remember that pop he got at TakeOver in Chicago, Survivor Series weekend? That huge pop when he came out, was the 4th member of the Team Ciampa. Yeah, he's still loved by the NXT audience. So I would definitely have to consider that. I would definitely, if I had a chance, if I was Vince McMahon, I would make the draft expand to the 3 brands, and you probably get more eyeballs as a result. Like I said, you put some of the guys who would be a top guy anywhere else, but are being lost in the shuffle on Raw, SmackDown, throw them in NXT. I think it'd be a good idea. It'd be a really good idea. So, but that's not going to happen, obviously, unless something changes last minute. But I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll see. But like I said, we'll recap the draft. We'll definitely talk about the draft on the wrestling podcast, Take the Wrestling podcast. Shout out to Mike and Joe, of course. We'll talk about that definitely in the weeks to come. We're also going to be launching our tag team bracket challenge this coming Sunday. So look out. If you're a wrestling fan, look out for that one. All right, let's go to Netflix real quick. Glow, see, and it's actually tied to wrestling because it's a show based off of wrestling, of a real story. Glow season 4 has been canceled by Netflix. Glow is the obviously the show. Mark Maron's on there, a couple other stars in there. Gordon's Days of Wrestling. I used to watch it as a kid, by the way, back in the day. Not like religiously, but it would always come on after Superstars or Wrestling Challenge in the late 80s and early 90s. Canceled by Netflix due to COVID-19. Really sad. Now, admittedly, I have not watched season 2 and 3. I finished season 1 when it was on TV when it first started, and I never had a chance to watch other seasons. But I will watch it at some point. Once I have a chance. I mean, there's so much shit going on now in the fall. Basketball, baseball playoffs, the finals, of course. NFL, college football's back. So much shit going on. Political stuff I watch all the time. And of course, it's election year, so there you go. So, but I really have been wanting to see Glow for seasons 2 and 3 for a while. Now, I don't know if they're done filming season 4. I think they canceled it altogether. From what I was reading, like they were filming season 4, and because of the COVID outbreak, they just said screw it. So they just scrapped it all together. I really hope at some point they decide to bring it back, or somebody else picks up the reins and the rights, whatever, and they try to do it. That'd be really cool. I don't know if that'll happen, but yeah. So that really sucks, unfortunately. See, COVID's hitting everything. It's hitting us, hitting Hollywood, hitting everybody. You name it. But Howard Stern got a new, reportedly has a new deal with SiriusXM to the tune of $120 million a year. Jeez, that guy. Admittedly, never been a really big Howard Stern fan. Admittedly, not a big Howard Stern fan, but recognizing how great a talent he is by far 2 or 3 of the greatest radio personalities in the history of media, whether it's sports, whether it's politics. I would say him and Rush Limbaugh both, and I'm not even a Rush Limbaugh fan, but both guys are incredible what they do as radio guys. $120 million a year, that is crazy. Even this time, I mean, SiriusXM is definitely tied to Stern. They need Stern. I've only in recent years started listening to him a little bit, not so much his show, but maybe the interviews. I remember I mentioned last year on this podcast when he had Hillary Clinton on for 2.5 hours. I thought that was the best interview I ever heard of Hillary Clinton speak on. For the most not respectful, but it was. I gained a little respect for Hillary Clinton after doing the Howard Stern show for 2.5 hours and being able to just be open and authentic. And I credit Howard Stern for that, creating the environment to do that. So yeah, but $120 million a year, that is insane. And it's funny because there were rumors about him possibly retiring after this year, or at the end of his contract, which is like soon. But yeah, he's going to give it a go. I mean, hell, $120 if it's supposed to pay me $120 a year to stick around for a couple more years, and I still got more in the tank, I'll do it, of course. But yeah, he's the GOAT when it comes to this kind of this medium, Finally, before I go, sad day yesterday. I actually wanted to do something separate with this about this topic, but on a separate episode on its own. But Eddie Van Halen passed away yesterday. Van Halen, founder, guitar player, at the age of 65 due to cancer. Now, it's not surprising in a sense because he's been sick for a long time. I think for what I read, he had cancer he'd been dealing with cancer for off and on for 20 years. I remember, if not a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, definitely the last couple of years, when he announced that cancer returned. So I knew he was sick already, but he got sick when they announced he got sick. It was like one of those things where he got sick and then he was gone. Like you didn't hear anything about it anymore. And he went pretty much incognito. Van Halen, I'm a huge fan, number one. And it's funny because most bands I listen to, like if a lead singer is a band, it's almost impossible to keep the name of a band and that band does as well as the band with the original singer. So obviously, if you know Van Halen's in the history, David Lee Roth was the lead singer from I think 72 to 85. Then he leaves the band. I can't remember if he got fired or not, but I mean, leaves the band. They're bringing Sammy Hagar. Their sound changes with Sammy Hagar, but it's still amazing. It is impossible to do that. You change singers and still the band does not really miss a beat while still changing their sound and still sound respectful. I've always said David Lee Roth was the party sound of the band, like a little more poppier in a sense, more so in the sense that Like songs like Jump in Panama was a lot more, I don't say pop, it's still hard rock. It's still rock, but you know what I mean? More fun in a sense, less serious. And then Sam Hamer comes to the band and a little more straightforward, more serious. And yet both versions of Van Halen was still incredible. I still loved it. Eddie was phenomenal. Eddie was, in my opinion, top 5 guitar player all time right off the bat. If I did an actual deep dive about who in my top 5 are, I mean, you look at Hendrix, looking at, and I bring in metal guys too, like Dave Mustaine, all that. Satriani and Steve Vai, he's in that conversation, without question. You talk about the elite of the elite guitar players of all time. What's so funny though, and I'm noticing this in the last 24 hours, and being on social media, being on some of my friends I've spoken to about Eddie Van Halen's death since the news broke yesterday. A lot of people didn't know that he played the solo on "Beat It" by Michael Jackson. That was him. I thought that was well known, that everybody just knew that was Eddie Van Halen on that song. Like hell, granted I know that because I'm a big Michael nut, but everybody knew that Eddie Van Halen played the solo on "Beat It." That's stunning to me that people did not know that. A lot of people didn't know that. And I'm stunned more to the fact that not just like younger folks, which I'll get past for, but people my age group, who are familiar with the stuff, didn't know that he played the solo on "Beat It." It stunned me. It really stunned me. So yeah, he did the solo on "Beat It." But yeah, this is a terrible loss. 2020 has fucking sucked. Let's call it what it is. 2020 has fucking sucked. We lost Kobe. You have COVID. Eddie Van Halen's gone. Who else we lost this year? We lost a lot of noble names this year that I forgot. But, it's still October. We still got another 2 months to go. There's still an election coming up. Who knows? And Donald Trump has COVID-19. Who knows? God forbid something happens to him. I don't know. It's weird. This year's gone sideways. Anything can happen. It's crazy. Anything can happen. But, again, Eddie Van Halen, to me, is truly incredible. He's going to be missed, obviously. Not just because of what he did on "Beat It," of course, but I love Van Halen. I'm a big Van Halen fan. So, thoughts for his family, friends, fans of the band, of him especially. So, yeah. I guess that's it for now. Oh, don't forget tonight. Tonight is the vice presidential debate. We'll see how that goes. Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence. I will say this. Maybe I'll do a reaction pod to this after, or I'll talk about it on the next podcast. This one will be much normal than the first debate between Trump and Biden. Pence is a lot more laid back. Kamala is with it. She's functional. So this should be a much more normal debate. But I don't think the debate's going to move the needle much. As I've been saying for weeks now, the amount of undecided voters this year, I believe, is much smaller than it was in 2016. I think people already scaunched in who they're going to vote for. You already have voting going on as we speak. Mail-in voting's already started. There's some states who are, I believe, already starting early voting. I know my state, we don't start till October 23rd. I'll be voting in person. I like voting in person traditionally. I'll probably talk more about that in the weeks to come. But yeah, tonight's debate. We'll check it out. So that's it for now. It's about 24 minutes of recording time. Again, I'm on Twitter at Egypt70. Oh, before I go, website news. Real quick before I go. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in April or May, somewhere around that time, my website, earnestspeaking.net, had expired, and I forgot it expired. And when I tried to renew it with the same name, the domain name was gone. I had thought that someone had scooped it up, so that's why I had changed my website into earnestly.com as opposed to earnestspeaking.net. So I did that with my actual name so I can keep my information over, thinking that earnestspeaking.net was gone. Lo and behold, it was never gone. What happened was that when something like that happens, it takes a little while for it to filter out its availability, in other words. So had I been patient, I would have been able to renew it without an issue. So I figured out today, or yesterday rather, to attach the site to the name I wanted. I wanted Earnest Speaking. I wanted it to be the brand name as opposed to my name, because Earnest Speaking it's a bigger name than Earnest Christian, let's be real. So, because this podcast, the newsletter, all that. So because of that, I was able to get that name back and attach it back to the domain name. So I actually own both Earnest Christian and Earnest Speaking domain name. So as of right now, immediately, earnestspeaking.net is back. So all the stuff you were getting on earnestchristian.com in the last couple months is now being returned back to earnestspeaking.net. So do nothing. Let's just put it back the old domain name and final material there. I'll be writing a little more. The newsletter, I'm gonna start doing that consistently every week. Probably in the next week or two. Yeah, so it's back. earnestspeaking.net's back. So check it out, of course. I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7. Till then, we'll talk soon. Love you guys. And next pod will be next day or so. Maybe do a mercy pod after the debates tonight. Probably not, just because I don't think there'll be much to talk about. And look up for the mega pod coming tomorrow, or Friday rather. All right, love you guys. Take care. See ya.